All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our HR Service Delivery Academy session for this month. Our topic for today is going to be universal request. And I am Allison French. I am one of the hosts for today, and I'm joined by several experts who will be presenting and helping answer your questions today. In terms of what we plan to cover during today's session, we are going to start things off with an overview of what universal request is. Then we'll go into a live demo to bring things to life and walk through some of the high-level configuration steps for universal request. And then ultimately, towards the end of the session, we'd like to talk through any questions that the audience has. And one thing I'd point out about questions specifically is throughout today's presentation, if you have any questions, please feel free to submit those in the Q&A panel on Zoom, and we will answer those in written format throughout, and then also take some time to discuss those towards the end. But without further ado, let's directly jump into our overview of universal request. And so for this portion, I will pass it over to Alan.
Great, thank you, Allison. Hello, everyone. Let me share my screen. All right, great. So welcome to the universal request introduction and demo for the Quebec release. We are very excited today to be showing you this new application that we hope is going to provide a lot of value to your organization. This will contain some forward-looking statements, so as always, safe harbor applies. And I'll start off by just explaining why we invested in this particular application. We are seeing a pretty rapid transformation of many of our large customers to a more connected service delivery model. We see customers who are moving away from siloed service delivery, where the employee has to guess which department to go to for support, and where if the employee guesses wrong, there's no easy way to work across departments to get that request to the right place. We're seeing a movement away from this siloed approach to more of an ESM, Enterprise Service Management, or a GBS, Global Business Services service delivery model, where the organization is more connected than ever before. Each of the service departments can work together to provide a truly seamless employee experience and also drive operational efficiency and cost savings for the organization. All right. So the key product outcomes we were focused on for the employee persona were, first, the ability to have a universal help capability. So when an employee has looked for knowledge or looked for catalog, if they just can't find what they're looking for, or maybe they don't even know what they're looking for, we wanted to provide them the ability to ask for help in a very simple, natural language way and know that they're going to get the help that they need. The second thing we focus on is a unified ticket page experience, so that no matter which department an employee may be working with, whether it's HR, IT, finance, legal, procurement, they will have a consistent standard ticket page experience, and you'll see that in today's demo. The third thing we focused on was a single request experience. This means an employee should never have to ask for help more than once. Once they submit the request, if there's changes needed, transfers that happen, any of that stuff that happens on the back end, the employee, it should feel to them like one request and one request only. And finally, we obviously want to try to optimize and speed up resolution time for employees. And to do that, we had to also solve for agents. So for the agent side, we focused on a collaboration capability, which really means the ability to seamlessly transfer work from one department to another across different scoped applications, different domains. We want to make sure that there's proper context so that when an agent receives a request that's been partially worked on or transferred to them, they know what's already been done and what has yet to be done. We delivered a machine learning routing classification capability, and that's really important if we're going to provide employees with a natural language request option. We need to be able to understand the meaning of that request and categorize that and get it routed over to the correct department. So that's what we have for the ML routing. And then finally, when we think about accountability, we think about the idea of end-to-end employee SLAs. So not just what part HR did and how long it took HR to do their HR case or IT and their IT incident, but rather the entire employee experience from the initial request all the way through the final delivery of the service and everything in between. And that's what the universal request data layer does, is that data model allows you to actually see that end-to-end flow as well as each step in the middle. So in summary, Universal Request is really here to accelerate your organization's transformation journey as you move to a more connected enterprise service delivery model. And all of this is in service to providing a better and more seamless employee experience across all of your service departments. The last thing I would mention here is another way to think about Universal Request. It's really the connection. It's the glue that binds together IT workflows, products like ITSM, with employee workflows, apps like HR service delivery, workplace, legal, procurement, as well as any custom apps you have built out on App Engine. So that's what UR is here to do, is really connect these together in new ways. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch now to our demo. And I will take you through a day in the life of Joe, the employee here, who has a problem. Joe has a question and he cannot access ADP payroll. So he does a search. And hopefully Joe can find a knowledge article or catalog item to help him with this. But in reality, sometimes Joe looks through his catalog and or his knowledge, and he just can't find what he's looking for, or maybe he's not really sure exactly what he's looking for. And so we've given this new capability called Request Help. And you can put this anywhere on your portal or your employee service center. So Joe's going to summarize his issue. I can't get access to ADP payroll. All right, and Joe's really concerned about that. So he's going to go ahead and hit submit. And this is creating a universal request. And right now, this short description and the description fields is what we would use to categorize and route this request to the correct department, HR, IT, or one of your custom applications that you have built out on App Engine. For Joe, the employee, he now lands on what we call the standard ticket page. This is a simplified, easier to understand ticket page for the employee that will be consistent across all service departments. The first thing you'll notice is a consistent reference number that the employee will have throughout his or her experience. So in this case, Joe will have this ticket 397 throughout this experience. He also has a simplified state model that's actually mapped over to other tickets that might be associated with this parent ticket called a universal request. And so the state model is very simple for the employee to understand. You'll see this change throughout the demo. And finally, we have a consolidated activity stream, so Joe knows exactly where he stands, regardless of who is helping him during the process. Okay, so now let's go ahead and switch over to our first agent, and this is going to be our IT routing agent. This is just your traditional ITIL user, your IT support agent, tier 1, who also happens to have the universal request role to be able to go in and see and work on universal requests. So here's that new request that came in, 397, and it says, I can't get access to payroll. And so at this point, I'm going to do a little research as the agent, and I'm going to determine that this needs to be escalated. I have no idea what's going on here. So I say, Joe, I'm escalating to higher level IT support. Okay, and I'll post that comment. Now, obviously, we would expect that to show up on Joe's ticket page, and it does. So here's Joe's ticket page. There's the comment from the IT agent. All right, let's go back. So at this point now, I'm going to go ahead and create an incident, and I have the role to do this. I have the ITIL role to create an IT incident. So I'm going to create the incident, and you can start to see here the data model. You can start to understand that this incident that's being created is actually part of the universal request. The parent record is the universal request, and the incident is going to become what we call the primary ticket on the record. Okay, so this is what's going to drive a lot of what we see on the universal request. Okay. So let me just quickly go in and put a work note in and just say, please help Joe. I have no idea what's going on. And we'll go ahead and save that. Okay, so now we've created our IT incident. Let's go ahead and switch over to our IT agent workspace. Let's take a look at our lists, and we'll go to our incidents. And we should have a new incident that just came in that says, I can't access ADP payroll. And again, you can see this relationship. The agents can see there is a relationship with the UR, but you'll notice that what really happens is the agents, we're not trying to change their behavior. They're still going to work on IT incidents. They're still going to work on HR cases or other custom tickets that you have. And that's the goal here, is not to change the agent behavior or the way they work, but rather to change and enhance the employee experience. So at this point, the IT agent says, okay, I've researched this, and I'm going to say, hey, Joe, sending to HR, it seems that they are blocking your account. Okay, we're going to go ahead and post that. Now, remember, I'm working on an IT incident. But if we go back to Joe's ticket page, you'll notice that note comes here, right? This comment comes in the activity stream. So Joe knows exactly where he stands. What you'll also see here is it's the same UR, right? Joe always sees the same UR number, 397, even though he's seeing stuff coming in from the IT incident. There are now a couple of additional fields you see displayed here. This is completely optional. It's a configuration. You can decide if you want to show certain fields from the underlying IT incident, the current primary ticket on this universal request. So this is optional. I think you can keep it clean, or you can obviously add whatever you'd like in terms of fields there. Now, also, you'll notice that the state is in progress. So even though this may be like a new state or something, you know, for the IT incident, it doesn't matter. We've mapped over the state model so that for Joe, it's very seamless, right? It's still in progress since that first agent got a hold of it, okay? All right, let's switch back over to our ITIL user. And so now the ITIL user is going to transfer this over to HR because clearly this is something HR is doing to block the account. So I'm going to use my new transfer UI action, and I'm going to transfer it to one of the different departments. I could transfer to one of my departments that's kind of like a standard ServiceNow offering, like human resources, workplace services, procurement, or legal. Or we could transfer to a custom application like finance that might be built on App Engine. Either way, for today's demo, we're going to go to HR. And the reason we're doing that is I want to show you that you can even go all the way down to the HR service level. So payroll, employee relations, human resources. We're going to select HR IT operations. Transfer reason is transferred without resolution because I didn't fix it. And I'm going to say to the new agent, please unblock Joe's ADP account. Okay, that's that context we want to give. Okay, so now I've gone ahead and created the what I've done here is I've transferred the ticket. And by doing that, I've automatically closed this IT incident, and I've opened an HR case. So now we're going to go into HR agent workspace. Here's our HR agent. Let's go to our list, and we'll take a look at our HR cases. There's a new HR case that just came in. You can see the data model correlation here with the universal request. So this is now the primary ticket on that universal request because it's been transferred. And what we're going to do at this point is the HR agent is going to do a little investigation, and they're going to figure out exactly what the problem is. So they're going to say, hey, Joe, you didn't do your compliance training, so we locked you out. Please do this so I can restore access. Sending it to you now. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and save that note. Now, if I go back to the ticket page, once again, we still have the same universal request number. The state is still in progress, even though that HR case might be in a different state. It's mapped over to that HR case. Here's the comment from the HR agent. So again, a unified activity stream, so Joe knows where he stands in the process. And now these fields that are being shown are actually coming from the HR case. So again, this is optional, but if you have certain fields you really want to show, you can do it here, okay? All right, great. So now let's go back to our HR agent. And the HR agent is going to go ahead and do something that you can do in HR, which is called an HR task. So we're going to go ahead and add a task for Joe to complete that mandatory compliance training. So I'm going to use a template for mandatory compliance training, and I'll go ahead and assign this over to Joe for completion. Okay, great. So now if I go back to my ticket page, where did my ticket page go? There it is. Okay, so now I'm back at my ticket page, and I'm going to go ahead and refresh this ticket page at this point because I want to show you something that's going to happen now. For the first time, you see something called a to-dos tab. All right, and that to-dos tab wasn't there before because there's no point in showing it to an employee when there's no to-dos to do. So now we have a to-do that's been assigned, a task that's been assigned to complete that compliance training. So Joe can see the compliance training and go ahead and complete the compliance training right from the same ticket, and he has done his part. Now, if I go back to the HR agent, I can go ahead and at this point say, okay, HR task is complete. I'm going to go back to this HR case, and I'm going to, at this point, change the state to awaiting acceptance. I'm going to restore access to ADP. Okay, so I change it to awaiting acceptance. If I go back to the ticket page, Now what you're going to see, if I refresh the page one more time, is you're going to see that there's now the accept reject resolution that's on the HR case, but it's showing up here on the UR. The state is still awaiting response, or has changed for the first time to awaiting response from user. And so we'll go ahead and accept that. Joe accepts the resolution. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to automatically close the HR case, as you see here. And because there's that state mapping model, it's also going to change, it's going to close the universal request for Joe. Okay, so this is an example of how you have a very complex back-end scenario, and yet for Joe, it's the same reference number, the same simplified state model, and a consolidated activity stream. Okay, I do want to show you one more thing, because we get questions about this a lot, and that is, well, what happens if it doesn't start as a universal request? What happens if it starts as an incident and I need to go ahead and transfer it over to something else? The answer is you can still do that. And actually, Chinny will actually show you the configuration on how to do that in just a moment. But for now, let me show you how that might work. So for IT, let's say that we go to our IT service catalog. All right, so Joe's in a hurry. He's between meetings, going from one meeting to another, and he doesn't have time to look around. He just creates a generic incident, right? This happens all the time where the employee doesn't want to search or they just don't have time. And so they just submit something saying, how do I order a new MacBook Pro? And they hit submit. Okay. Now this is clearly an IT incident that's being created. But for Joe, the employee, because we have it set up for universal request, you'll notice Joe actually sees the universal request instead of the IT incident. So you can actually set up your record producers across the board to create URs, and that way employees will always have the same consistent experience. And you will also be able to transfer tickets and do that cross-departmental reporting that I was talking about in the beginning. Okay. Now, let's quickly take this scenario through. So let's become our ITIL user. Okay, so our higher level IT routing agent. Let me go ahead and find that one. I believe it is this one. Nope. Yes, that's the right one. Sorry. Okay, so this is our ITIL user, our higher level IT agent. And so let's go ahead and close that last one we were working on, and let's see if something new came in. Okay, so we have a new request that just came in. How do I order a MacBook Pro? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Now, one thing I'll also point out here that's important to note is the security model behind all this. In the past, we used separate scoped apps as our security model. That's great unless you want to actually be able to work across those organizational boundaries. You need a way to do that. So what we realized is with universal requests, because we're tying a UR to a departmental ticket like an HR case, security was critical. And so we have a 3-layered security model here that allows you to either, well, number one, the employee can specify when they think something is sensitive. Number two, an agent who has the right permissions can restrict or unrestrict tickets so that it's only visible to a certain security group. And third, you can automatically set up your security group so only people within a certain security role can see an incoming HR case or employee relations ticket specifically, or an IT incident like I have set up here. Okay, so that's just an FYI. Back to our use case though, Joe the employee says, how do I order a MacBook Pro? And what the agent can now do is they can create a task. Now this is in IT. So this is actually a new application. It's a sister application to Universal Request, and it's called Universal Task. All right, and this allows you to do basic tasking from any of your departments. You can do employee tasking. So in this case, I'm going to use the submit catalog item task. I'm going to go ahead and pick the MacBook Pro, which is what Joe is trying to order. And I'll just say, Joe, use this link to order. Okay, and then I'll do ready for work. All right, and I'm all set. Now let's go back to Joe's ticket page. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick refresh on this ticket page. And once again, you're going to see this task tab that's now going to show up. So same universal request that was originally submitted as an IT incident. And look at this. Here's the answer to Joe's question. He asked the question, how do I order a MacBook Pro? The answer is Joe used this link to order it, and Joe can go ahead and order the MacBook Pro right from the same ticket. This is that single request experience that I referred to earlier. Okay. All right, that's the end demo of UR. I'm sure you'll have questions we can answer at the end. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chinny now to talk about some of the configuration that you can do to set this up for your organization. Chinny, please go ahead and share your screen.
Thanks, Arun. I'll share my screen. Okay, so Alan has taken you through the complete end-to-end experience of universal request along with universal tasks and HR tab. I'll walk you through some of the configurations that takes to get this seamless experience. So you have something called guided setup for your department. So I'll first take you through the guided setup and then get into the details of the configuration. So under universal request application administration, you find this guided setup for services and guided setup for universal request. So these are two set of configurations that you need to make to get UR working. So I go into guided setup for services, click on get started. You see a lot of steps here. I'll take you through a couple of steps here, like creating a service set and assignment group services and state mappings and transfer configurations. So each step is actually descriptive. You can get inside the steps and it describes each of the steps. And you can click on the configure links to go to the place where you can do the configurations. So I'll walk you through the basic configurations. The first one is you need to set up service sets. So what service sets means is basically the departments in your organization. Let's say we have these departments, human resources, IT department, and so on. In addition to that, if we want to maintain one department which is exclusive for universal request, meaning your tier 1 agents belong to that group. So it is up to the implementation, customer's implementation, how you want to do that. So you can have one group. And in the service configurations, you can add your departments and mark one of them as a universal set. I'll show where it comes to play shortly while I'm doing a demo. So only one of these sets can be marked as a universal set. So what it basically means is, if the ticket is, when an agent is transferring a ticket, if he is not sure which department he has to transfer it out, but definitely it doesn't belong to his department, he can put it into a common queue from which the routing agents would evaluate and transfer to the appropriate department. That's the purpose of this flag. Next comes the service set assignment groups. So this is basically a mapping between your service, your departments and their assignment groups. The basic assignment mapping that you have across service now. So if a ticket falls into this department, then it is by default assigned to such assignment group. Then comes the service configuration, which is the crux of all this UR binding with multiple departments. So whenever you want to uptake UR for any of your services, which are essentially the tables in your department, you can do that configuration here. So you mention the tables, give it a service name, and also mention the service set to which it belongs to. So this is basically registering your services with UR. Okay. So these are the basic. Okay, this also will have an assignment group at service level. Also, you can have assignment groups attached to the services. So when the ticket moves to the service level, then this assignment group comes into play. The ticket gets assigned to this assignment group. Okay. Next, we'll move on to the key configuration called state mapping. Now, what state mapping means is, as you have seen in Alan's demo, the universal request was created, then an incident was created and attached to it. An incident has been going through its regular flow. As part of its regular workflow, it will move through some states. But what the employee was, the states that employee would see are from universal request. So there is a mapping between the different department states, which can be unique for departments, and the universal request, which will have a common set of states, which are shown to the requester. So this mapping is done in the state mapping here. So what it essentially means is, let me take an example here. I'll take one record here, which is defined on the incident table. It's loading. Okay. So what it means is, on the incident table, if the incident state is changed to resolved, I want my universal request state to change to awaiting response. In addition, I can change other fields also. So here I have mentioned state region should be changed to accept resolution, and close note should be updated like this issue is resolved by associated incident. So let's see how this state mapping comes into play. I'll go to a short demo and I'll come back to configuration again. So here I'm logged in as a routing agent. who is a tier 1 agent for the universal request group. And an employee has already logged a universal request, which I can see here, which I have already assigned to my queue. So it is this particular UR which says laptop not working, and Joe employee has logged it already. So you have seen the demo of how employees logs when Alan demoed it. Okay. Now, I as a routing agent, I look at this record and see, okay, this has to be worked upon by the IT department. So I'll go ahead and create an incident for the IT department to work on it. So I click on create incident. And I'll update some notes, work notes, paste to the network. So this laptop is not working. I'm keeping it simple for the sake of brevity. So now the incident got created, and I'll switch to IT agent who will actually look at these incidents. So I'm refreshing my unassigned incidents. I have 16 here, and this is the incident that came in just now. Now this agent will talk to the requester. Probably he thinks the laptop needs a replacement and he did a replacement. Let's assume that case. So what he would do is he'll first assign this incident to him. And he simply wants to resolve that. So let's say he resolved this case. So why I'm taking the resolve case to show this effect. When my state changes to resolve, what happens to universal request? As of now, the universal request, universal request is in progress state. So now if I go to this incident and I go to the resolution, I say it is solved permanently, issued a new laptop, and I say resolve. So my incident is now resolved. Okay. If you go back to the universal request here, and we refresh here, what should happen is my universal request state reason and close note should be updated, as well as the state should be updated. You go and check that. So it went into awaiting response state, and the close notes are updated. So this is where your state mapping comes into picture. This is one of the key configuration. Close that. I'll move on to the next configuration, which is a transfer configuration. So the purpose of transfer configuration is when the responsibility is moving between departments like this, from universal request to one department, the department agent may work on that issue and straight away close it, or he may do a partial work and he needs other departments' help to close it, or it doesn't even belong to his department, so he wants to put it out to other department. So when these kind of movements happen, I want to configure what fields on my department ticket should be updated. So for example, I'll again take incidents example. I will have two options to do a transfer. Okay. In the demo that you just saw, Alan used a transfer without resolution because it was not an IT issue, it was a HR issue. So the agent used a transfer is now transfer without resolution. And when he does that, what should happen is this configuration, is this transfer configuration. So there are two parts to it for the transfer configuration. When I transfer from my department back to the UR or another department, the transfer information tab will come into play. And once the issue is actually finally resolved, maybe through other department help or the UR agent has resolved it, if the UR has finally closed, then also I want to update my current department status. So these two tabs will do that configuration. Transfer is toward making an outward transfer from my department, and closure information is a reverse updates on my department ticket. So here, if you look at this record, for incident table for transfer without resolution case, I'm saying update my transfer state to resolved and update this resolution code and notes to this particular text. Okay. And for closure case, if the UR gets closed later on, close my ticket as well. I mean, change the state of my ticket to closed as well, and update the resolution code and notes to this text. We'll see that in action. I'll go to routing agent again, and I'll look at my work. I have a second UR that is open. So this was a UR logged by Joe employee again. So he says he's unable to log into Workday. And now I think it's an IT issue. As a routing agent, I think it's an IT issue. So I'll go ahead and create an instance again. This is very similar to the flow that Alan demoed, but I'm going it in a shortcut way. Okay, so please check user's account. And I save this instance. Now back in the IT agents queue, I'll go to the unassigned instance. So I have this incident here again. As a IT agent, I look at this incident. I check the user's account and I feel it is not my issue. HR is blocking the account for some reason. So what I want to do is, first of all, I'll assign it to me. And then I want to transfer this out. It's not my department's work. I mean, there's nothing to do in my department. I want to transfer it out. So where do I transfer this? So I know it is and I, as an agent with my knowledge, I am aware that this is something HR department has to handle. So I'll try and transfer to the HR department. Excuse me, the instance is a bit slow. Okay, so now I get a list of departments here. Now, if you remember, we talked about service sets in the beginning. When I started, so those service sets will be displayed here. We can see the departments that we configured for your universal request. And there was a last department which we flagged it as a universal request department. So if I say I am not sure, I can transfer to the universal request. If I select the department, I can actually transfer directly to the particular department. So let me select HR in this case, and I select transfer reason as a transfer without reason, which is going to trigger my transfer configuration. And I say HR is, account is logged by HR. Just check. And I say transfer. Now let's see what happened. As per our transfer configuration, my transfer state should be resolved, and my resolution code and resolution notes should be updated. Let's look at if that happened. Let me refresh this. Okay, so my state has changed to resolved, and I'll have the resolution notes. See, the code is not solved, and the resolution notes is whatever I put in the configuration. Okay, so this is the one part of the transfer configuration when I did an outward transfer. Next, we'll look at how the closure information will come into play. Now, what I did, I transferred it to the HR department. So let me go here and refresh HR agents workspace. Okay, I have this new case here. Let me just double check. So this is my HR ticket that got created. I'm there, and this is my HR case. So here I would look at this employee's account, and I see he has not completed some training. So I would create some task and ask him to complete. He's finished. Now, what I would do is I'll close this HR case. I'll initially first start working on it. And actually, I'll update the agent I'll update the comments. Like, sorry, the employee has completed training and account is unblocked. So I'm actually done with my work. And I would close this ticket. So my HR ticket also got closed. Back in the UR for the UR agent, if you look at this UR, so it has moved into awaiting response state, which was again a transfer configuration of HR ticket. Now I can actually close this ticket as a UR agent. I'm going ahead and closing this ticket just to trigger the transfer action. Okay, my state is closed. Now, if you look at the incident which we left over in the beginning, so the incident also got closed. And if you see the resolution notes were updated, close state of universal request has driven this incident to close. This was coming from here. So the cycle is complete. So those are two key configurations, state mapping and transfer configuration. Next, the third one that Alan was mentioning, he showed a demo where employee has directly gone to service catalog, selected a create incident record producer and created an incident, which instead created a UR. So let's see how that happened. So I go to record producers. I'll select the create incident record producer. And inside the record producer, when UR is installed, you'll start seeing a new tab called Universal Request Config. Under this tab, if you select this Create Universal Request checkbox, whenever this record producer is used, it automatically creates a universal request as well. So that all your record producers are also covered under universal request. Okay, that's one. And I'll move to one more interesting configuration. So the view, the unified ticket view of the requester. Let's say I'm opening one of my UR which I created. So if you see here, this is a unified view for all the universal requests. Whatever department is currently working on that. For example, if you see this universal request, actually initially it was created for IT department. IT agent did not post anything, but it was then transferred to HR. Then the HR agent has actually completed it. So there's an activity stream here. Then there are attachments here. And here you are seeing some text from that's coming from the HR case. So the way this page is structured is the top part, on the very top, you have the UR number here. And these fields are about the UR status and its current state and all. The next is header part will be coming from the current department ticket. So universal request can have one department ticket which is current. So initially for this example, we had an incident first, then it was closed and the HR case was created. Now currently HR is the last primary ticket for it. Okay, so this header part will be coming from the primary ticket. Let's see how this configuration is made. The whole page is called a standard ticket. So this configuration is done for each table under the standard ticket configuration menu. So let's say I'm taking SNHR core case, which is my HR case. I'll open this. So if you look at this configuration, I have an info region which says show description when there are no variables. And yes, I'm seeing the description here. Then I have not selected any info fields, so there are no fields. And in the action region, I can select one widget which is saying HRSP standard ticket actions, which are this one. The accept resolution button that you're seeing here is coming from this HR widget. Okay, you can add additional parameters. In addition, we have these tabs here, configured, activity, attachments, and addition details, which are of different types. Like one is the activity stream, The other one lists attachments, and the other one is a variable summarizer, which will show if you have any variables on your record. So as of now, we don't have any variables here, so there's no third tab, but you see the activity and attachments tab. Similarly, we'll look at incident also. So laptop not working was actually what is an incident. So when the primary ticket was incident, the UI looks a bit different because it is coming from incidents configuration. Let's go to incident configuration and pick it. Here you see in the info region, some fields are selected. Already urgency, CMDB, CA assigned to, etc. So if you see already urgency and CMDB was empty, so it is not shown, then assigned to. And it has activity and attachment tabs like the HR ticket. So those tabs are coming from here. So this is standard ticket configuration. Suppose if your department is having any other ticket page instead of standard ticket page, for using UR, you have to mandatorily move to standard ticket configuration. And in case you have an older ticket page in use, you can define page route mapping, which will direct your old page calls to the old page to the new standard ticket page. So you can define a route mapping here. I'll show you some examples. So let's say standard ticket here. So these are some of the examples that we already have here. So this is for the incident. Earlier it was using a ticket page. Now it's routed to standard ticket page. Similarly, HRSP ticket was on the use earlier. Now it's routing to standard ticket page. So all the references to these older pages will now direct to the new one.
Yeah, and the reason this last configuration, the reason this last configuration is important that Shin is showing you is we really think this can benefit all customers immediately. So even if you haven't yet implemented universal request, the standard ticket page is something you could take advantage of to provide just a better ticket page experience, an enhanced ticket page experience to your employees. So just keep in mind that this one is available to everybody as of Paris, okay?
Yes, this is already shipped in Paris. So all this information that I talked about now is available under guided setup for UR and services, including the standard ticket and page roadmap and everything. So yeah, you can see the steps here. So it's mentioned, you can set the page roadmaps here. And for the services, you can go and configure the standard ticket. So this would be a very good point for starting the configuration. The steps are laid out in a sequence and you can go through them and onboard any new department to use universal request. So that's all I have for configuration. Over to Alan again.
Okay, so I think we're going to be moving over to Q&A now. Is that correct, Allison, or are we going to do the poll first? You're on mute. Allison, you're on mute.
Thank you. That's correct. Yes, let's move over to Q&A for a couple of moments so I can reshare my screen. I've been keeping tabs. It looks like Debajit has done an awesome job of keeping pace and answering questions in written format. But I think what we can do right now, Alan, is just spot pick a couple of them to talk through live. So the first one I think we should talk through, Alan, is what ServiceNow license is required to leverage Universal Request?
Sure. I should go back on video. I will take that one. So Universal Request is actually packaged with the other products that you already license. So for example, the base features you saw today, like transferring between departments, the security model, those are things that are available through HR standard, HRSD standard, ITSM standard, App Engine standard. So they're bundled into those other capabilities. If you go with any of the premium features, the more the things like VA, predictive intelligence, performance analytics, that machine learning, which is predictive intelligence, the machine learning you saw for routing between departments and getting the ticket to the right department, from the natural language request, all those are considered premium features. So they would be bundled with our pro capabilities. So ITSM Pro, HR Service Delivery Pro. They do come standard in things like workplace services, legal, and then also App Engine Pro. So that's generally how our licensing works, is these features come with the appropriate level of each of our other products.
Great, thank you. So looking through the chat, another thing I think we should talk about, so I'll read the question aloud so everyone knows the question I'm referring to. So how is this different from Service Desk as a single point of contact and routing tickets to different groups or department teams? What was the point in creating a separate module for Universal Request?
Is to be able to do that same thing across the entire enterprise, so across separate scoped apps and separate departments.
Great, thank you. And one thing I would pick up on that question too, I know previously customers had kind of issues when they maybe had an HR case versus an IT incident, and they didn't have that universal record to kind of seamlessly transfer that across the enterprise. So just wanted to highlight that question as an important one. I think we've also gotten some questions around domain separation, although it looks like Debajit is keeping up with those
Yeah, but I would
via chat.
Yeah, I just want to take this with Chinny, given Chinny with this is a question where Chinny, the question is around, they have single instance, 4 domains are supported by the same IT team. The question is, can IT agents change the domain while on workspace, similar to the domain picker?
So can you repeat that again? What is the configuration?
The thing is, the customer has 4 domains, and all the 4 domains are supported within the same IT team, and everything is on one instance. Right?
So it's basically multiple services within the same department.
Right. And can IT agents change the domain while they work on workspace, similar to the domain picker?
So there's no provision as of today that we're offering to change the domain as such. Yeah.
No, but if that is something, if that's a use case that you'd like to talk to us about, we would be interested in speaking with you about that. I want to learn more about that use case.
Yep.
Great.
Alison, there's one more question from YouTube in the beginning. I probably did not get the context of the question. Was within HR, if you have some task to fill the details on case form without giving manager the entire case access, what is the best way to do it? I'll probably require a little bit more detail on that question. It's not very clear to me as to what exactly is the ask there.
I was looking at that question as well, and it looks like it came in from YouTube. So we might have to have that user specify a little bit more detail. But Alan, did you have thoughts on how to maybe answer that?
I was going to suggest we take that one offline because it's probably going to require some more discussion. So if that user could let us know, I don't know how it comes across, but if we can figure out who that is, we can connect with them.
Great.
Hey, Allison, there was a question that came in around interaction records. I do want to cover that one because even if it wasn't asked by multiple people, and I know Debajit tried to answer, in writing, which is hard to do because there's a lot to discuss there. I did want to take a shot at this one because I think it's really important, and most customers do ask us about this. They say, what is the difference between interaction records and universal request? The first thing I will say is because we didn't have universal request, a few customers we've talked to did try to do the same kind of things with interaction records. Didn't work out so well. Interaction records was not designed for that. Interaction records was designed for one purpose and one purpose only. And that is to take notes on an interaction via phone or via live chat, to take notes and make a key decision. Is this an existing request that's already there that I should associate this to or go work on? Or is this a new request that needs to be created? That is the only purpose of an interaction record. It has no other purpose whatsoever. So if you try to use it like universal request, you're going to have problems with reporting and other things because it's not a true task type. It's not a parent record that sits on top of these other records. There's a lot of intentional architecture built into universal request. So what universal request would be used for is when you want an actual record created, right? You have a new record. It's a request that just came in through whatever department, through whatever channel, and you want it to be a record that can be transferred, that can be reported on, that can be shown to the employee in this seamless, single ticket experience that we talked about today, right? That's when you would use universal request. Interaction would be used to maybe get to a universal request or to get to an IT incident or HR case It's really just that initial phone interaction, that initial, live chat, and then you make a decision and say, okay, yeah, this is an existing issue, or let me go create an HR case, IT incident, or even a universal request potentially if you're not sure which department to send it over to. So there is a big difference between the two. I hope that answers your question.
Great. That was a good one to talk about live. Another one, Alan, that just came in recently, I believe is around restriction and security. So I'll read you the question aloud. If an employee is asking you to keep the request confidential, can we configure the restriction across all the departments, especially when you are transferring from one department to another department, instead of asking the fulfiller or agent to make this decision? And they have a second question. I can read this again, but it says, can collaborators or watch list users transfer from one ticket to another HR case or vice versa?
Debatjit, do you want to take both of those?
Sure. Sure. The first question, you can configure restrictions at the service level. We introduced that as part of Rome, right? So you can actually say that, okay, for this service, whatever request is being filed, it is always going to be restricted. And that applies to services like employee relations, right? Where you know that those kind of cases are always going to be restrictive and you don't want people like other agents to see it. So, right. So you can apply restriction at the service level. And when I say service, it's the service configuration level that Chini was walking us through during his demo. That's one. Collaborators and watchlet users are not transferred, right? So what is transferred right now is the short description, if you choose, the comments and the attachments will get transferred, but nothing beyond that.
Awesome. Thank you, Debatjit. Another question just came in via YouTube around interactions. So the question is whether interactions will be deprecated in the future.
No, because there's absolutely a need for that interaction, right? You don't want to create duplicate records. If you had to create a universal request every time someone called you, you'd have, 5 duplicates for the same request. Interaction is there to make that key decision. Is this an existing request or do I want to create a new request? So you would not want to use universal request to replace interaction records, nor would you want to use interaction records to replace universal request.
Great, thank you. And I believe we're caught up at this moment with Q&A. So what I'm going to do is give the audience a couple more moments to think through other questions you might have. And I also wanted to talk through a couple of additional items. So one, I wanted to point out that as part of our Knowledge 21 conference this year, we do have a lab specifically dedicated to universal requests that was run. So I have the information here on the session title and number. We can also post this back to the event page. So this is one good resource if you're interested in learning more about universal request. The other thing I wanted to do is launch a poll. So if you're in Zoom, you should see that pop up in a moment. We're curious to hear from the audience on whether you'd be interested in a second deeper dive session on how to fully configure and implement universal request. We got through a lot today, but there's a lot more to talk about. So we'd like to gauge interest there. And I'm seeing the poll results come in live right now. It looks like the answer is absolutely yes. It looks like a majority of the group is indicating that would be helpful, which is great. So we can work on getting that scheduled and communicating that out. And in the meantime, it looks like we did get another question in the Q&A panel, so I'll read that aloud. I'd like to use universal requests for just HR. So the employee has one request experience, but it only goes to HR. Is that an option?
Yeah, it's an option. It doesn't have as much utility, but if you're building a foundation in HR and maybe it might expand over time, then it certainly couldn't hurt. Debatjit, do you disagree with that, or do you feel that that's an appropriate answer?
No, I think I agree with that. There is nothing stopping us from doing that. But
yeah.
The utility, as Alan said, is actually when you have multiple departments who want to collaborate with each other. That's where the real power of UR comes into picture.
Yeah, and again, if you're trying to just get that nicer ticket page experience, you can do that through page route mapping without installing universal requests. So just keep that in mind if you're an HR-only customer and you just want the enhanced ticket page experience. It's okay just to do the page route mapping configuration without installing or doing anything else with UR. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. Chini, you want to take the next question maybe?
Yeah. So the question is, what is the difference between plugins Universal Request and Universal Request Pro? So Universal Request contains two plugins, which is the core functionality of Universal Request and the basic reporting. And Universal Request Pro contains the additional premium features like VA, AWA, machine learning, so AWS advanced work assignments, and the performance analytics reporting for Universal Request. Yep.
Great. So it looks like at this moment, we are currently caught up with questions. We'll give it another moment or two. While we're doing that, Alan or others, are there other questions that come up frequently that you'd like to just talk about with the group?
Yes, but I want to put in a quick plug here for something. You know, I wanted to let all the folks on the phone who joined us know, if you are actively implementing Universal Request right now, we may not know that. And as a product team, we'd like to reach out to you, connect with you on how that's going, learn from your experience, and bring that back in, those insights back into the product roadmap. So if you are a customer who is actively going through implementation right now, or planning to in the next 3 months, please let me know and reach out. Feel free to reach out to me directly. My name is spelled as it is on Zoom here, and it's alan.sable@servicenow.com. So alan.sable@servicenow.com as spelled on the screen that you see here on the Zoom. So please feel free to reach out to me if in fact you are already in implementation process or plan to be in process in the next 3 months, so we can partner up on that and help build out the roadmap for the future.
Great, thanks, Alan.
It looks like we got one more question. Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a UC SLA for UC request? How easy is it going to be for service manager to monitor and improve overall operations? Because there are so many departments involved, other service managers as well. We also need to have a similar, universal experience for our service managers in the platform UI.
In the platform. Okay, so first of all, everything we showed today in Agent Workspace is available in Platform UI. So I did want to clarify that as well. We just chose to demo it in Agent Workspace because everybody always asks us to. So, Debajit, do you have any thoughts on the SLA question?
Yeah, so SLA management is available at the UR level. So you can set up SLAs for UR and really measure end-to-end resolution time, right? So that's another advantage of UR, whereby once you start an SLA at the UR level, you can keep that open until the UR gets closed, right? So even if the ticket would have jumped multiple departments, you are now getting a collated view of how long that ticket actually took to resolve. Now, that's available at the UR level, and we have shipped this out of the box also so that you can use those SLAs, right? The moment you kind of start the ticket, you sort of like create the request, the response SLA starts, and then there are OLAs also that we are tracking, which basically captures the time required to transfer the ticket from one department to the other, or from Universal Request to other departments. So those are all available out of the box. In terms of really syncing the Universal UR SLA with the department SLAs, that's something I think we probably would leave that out to the customers to figure out, because there are SLAs that are relevant for HR. There are different SLAs which are again relevant for incident. And how do you combine that into one kind of flow is something that probably will be more of a process kind of a question than the product can solve. But yes, SLAs can be set up at the UR level, and you can track the end-to-end SLAs for UR.
I do want to. I have 1 minute left, so I do want to mention one other important thing on roadmap, so that everyone's aware. We also had a significant investment in Rome as well, in continuing to enhance Universal Request. One of the most important enhancements there is the ability for that Universal Request. Remember that request help form that the employee filled out? You actually now have the ability to, as of Rome, you'll be able to directly send that straight into a department ticket instead of going to a Universal Request first. So I want you to know that that's coming, and be aware of that, because that will continue to optimize the flow, I think, a bit. There's also some additional enhancements we're doing around RITMs, request items, and the integration there between universal request. That's in the Quebec releases, the Rome release as well. And then thinking even longer term, the one thing I'd also mention is if you get into UR now, a lot of the investment we're making in the future is really around AI enablement of process automation and routing automation into the right fulfillment process. So with UR, we said we're going to get it routed to the right department. The next thing we're working on is figuring out how do we get it routed into the right fulfillment process? How do we get self-service and deliver that through the channel that makes the most sense to the employee? How do we get that self-service delivered to them? And so that's something that we are continuing to invest in. So that this becomes the foundation. Universal Request becomes the foundation of a lot of other work that's going on. And with that, Allison, back to you.
Yes, I was just going to say, it looks like we are right at time. This was like clockwork, and I believe we are now caught up with all of our questions. So as a follow-up to the poll that we ran, we will be running another session. So stay tuned for more information on that. We'll post that back out to our community page. And thank you to everyone who joined live. The recording will be posted back out on community soon. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.